Welcome to Buckets, coming to you from the Tommy John Holmes Studios. My name's Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network, joined by Gilles Gallant, host of the Touchdown Show, three-point prop betting extraordinaire at G-Dog 500. I thought 5,000.
I think I got cut off. It's supposed to be G-Dog 5,000, but
it's definitely 5,000.
Yeah, maybe if I need to subscribe to StreamYard
here, Jill. G-Dog 5,000 on Twitter and the Action Network app. Also joined by Sean Little at Chicago Flow from MSG Networks. Here to talk Pacers-Knicks Game 4 for your best bets for the Eastern Conference Finals. Everything we talk about today can be found in the award-winning Action Network app. Best way for you to track your picks. You can get up to the second information where the bets and money are coming in on. If you become a pro subscriber, you're going to get our WNBA season projections that are now live in the Action Network app. Whether you're looking for an edge betting WNBA sides, totals, or player props, Action Pro projections are the perfect tool for your toolbox this season. If you aren't an Action Pro subscriber yet, you can get $20 off an annual subscription right now. Just visit actionnetwork.com/pro to sign up. That's $20 off the annual subscription price at actionnetwork.com/pro. All right, let's talk about Pacers and Knicks Game 3 and kind of what we think from that game. Sean Little, I will give you the floor to paint a beautiful fairy tale of how this game pretends well for the New York Knicks.
A fairy tale. Hey, sometimes fairy tales come true. Ask the Boston Celtics. They saw it live. And Knicks are back from the dead. They were complete and absolute dust. I didn't have very much confidence they would get back into that game because I didn't see the path. The path wasn't very clear. Nothing that they were doing was working. DeLon Wright, Landry Shamet come off the bench. Shamet picks up a charge, gets super fired up. The defense those guys brought in that second half really changed the game, and then it fell at Karl-Anthony Towns' feet offensively, and he did everything necessary to pour in 20-plus in the fourth quarter, and that's exactly what they needed. I sent out a tweet during the game or after the game, and I said, Tom Thibodeau will not give you minutes unless he trusts you. He has to see it with his own eyes. For example, Cam Payne's had streaks where he's been really impactful. I think he won them a game in that Pistons series. Cam Payne got minutes after that. He's part of the rotation. He comes in, knocks down a couple of threes, he's in the game. The Shamet, if you're watching the Knicks closely down the stretch of the regular season, was extremely impactful. But, you know, it's March basketball, early April basketball, regular season. How important is that? But he was very good. He got pigeonholed into having to play DeLon Wright and Shamet because of the Brunson foul trouble. And now he's seen that those guys can be impactful. However they ended up on the floor right now, doesn't matter. They proved that they could get some minutes and deserve some and can hang. And I think now that changes a lot of the lineups here. I can guarantee you will not see Cam Payne the rest of the way. All those minutes are going to go to Shamet. All those minutes are going to go to DeLon Wright. And they're going to try to figure it out that way. So my handicap for the Knicks being able to win this series from the jump was nobody on the Pacers can check Karl-Anthony Towns. And when he seems to remember that and goes about his business as if no one can slow him up, he has success. That's exactly what he did in the fourth quarter. The Mitchell Robinson thing was an interesting experiment, but it's very clear he's way more impactful in short spurts when needed and not a starting guy that's going to give them a lot of minutes for long stretches of time that are super impactful. So I'm interested to see who starts in this next coming game. It could be Mitch once again, but I wonder how those minutes break down. And Jalen Brunson's not stay out of foul trouble. The fairy tale, as you call it, Matt Moore, is still alive because they have two guys that could legitimately give you 30 points. Cat remembered that, and then they should be able to clean up the glass. And now, if it's really a conundrum, we're going to get into it, but when Jalen and Cat are on the floor, they can't stop the Pacers. That's very clear. When one of the guys is the offensive spearhead and there's four other guys with a focus on defense, they've been in the game. How does Tibbs balance that? That's why you're the head coach, and that's why you make the big dollars. We'll see how it shakes out.
See, here's the thing: is you're like, we'll see how it shakes out. Okay, let me peer into the crystal ball here, Sean.
Yeah.
He's gonna play Jalen Brunson 45 minutes. You're not gonna fucking see DeLon Wright or Landry Shamet at all. He's gonna dribble the air out of the ball, and they're gonna lose. That's what's gonna happen, my guy. Come on,
Well,
now.
we don't
You know what Tibbs is doing.
We don't know that because I really think that he's now seen DeLon Wright, and he feels like he can go to Shamet for some minutes. And if Brunson doesn't get in foul trouble, which I don't believe he will, we'll talk about that. A lot of stupid fouls from Jalen Brunson in the last couple of games for the
And thank
Knicks.
God for him, because we'd be looking at a sweep if Jalen Brunson hadn't picked up those fouls.
Like I said, no
hater.
matter how they got minutes, they end up getting the win. I think he's going to feel more comfortable peeling Brunson off the floor. It showed down the stretch. He didn't put him in the game when he could have been multiple spots around the 5.5 minute mark. Brunson doesn't get off the bench so damn near under 2 minutes. So
because that to me is a Tibbs. That's him being like this. That's a very old school coach, which is what he is. This lineup's working. I'm gonna let it ride.
Yeah.
That's all that is. It's not like, oh hey, I got to kind of limit Jalen's minutes because we actually die. They're a -9 net rating in the series when he's on the floor, +15 without him. So Gilles was like, what a hater. Here's what sucks. I love Jalen Brunson. I said on the Mavericks, I was like, he's awesome. And like when they were beating Utah, I was like, they're better with Jalen running the show than they were with Luka. And he goes to New York, and I was like, oh, this is so cool. And like, he's a playoff motherfucker. Like, he's so cool. And the game has turned into, he's become another one of these isocentric guys where like the ball movement dies with him. Like nobody else is involved when he's on.
It's a lot worse in the back half of the fourth quarter. Throughout the game, it's not as rough as you're laying it out, Matt. But
felt like it last night.
But this is the thing. You got to kind of pick your poison, right? When they win and everything goes well, clutch motherfucker of the year, Jalen Brunson down the stretch, possession by possession, he picks you apart. And then they lose, and it's like Jalen Brunson's dribbling the air out of the ball. So it's kind of like, look.
I thought it was worse. I thought it was worse in the first when they went down 20. I was commenting on it. I don't mind if Jalen does it in clutch time, my guy. Look, I don't mind if he does that because that time is when you should do that. You limit turnovers. We gotta let Gilles get in a word here because you and I've been going back and forth for 5 minutes.
Well, my thing is I wanted to touch on the Mitch Robinson angle here because he didn't play at all in that fourth quarter. I thought that was kind of key of the way that they went to Cat being the lone. And again, Cat probably played the best playoff game of his career, 20 points in the fourth quarter. So I think you kind of touched on that I don't think we're going to see Brunson foul trouble like that here again in game 4. But Mitch Robinson, again, look at his box score and how he finished, where he's playing a little bit more minutes, still finished with less rebounds, only 6 points. I think they're going to have to be able to still limit his minutes where he's coming in for maybe 3 to 4, maybe even 5 minute stretches instead of playing like the entire first quarter like he did, because he kind of contributed to that negative fallout there. So I think it was interesting just because if you think back to game 3, everybody was on the Mitch Robinson overs, especially the rebounds, and those rebound chances just weren't there like when he was out on the floor. So it'll be interesting to see how the markets reflect that. But that's the one thing with Mitch Robinson. I think we're going to see less minutes of him and probably way more of Cat as long as he doesn't get in foul trouble.
Josh Hart goes over because he's in that bench unit, which I think is really interesting. I actually really think that there's something to this, Gilles, that why did Mitch Rob earn his starting minute? Because he was so great in the stagger minutes at the end of the first and the end of the third. It's those lineups that the Knicks are playing well in. Last night, the Pacers starters were -6. You want to know the funniest stat from game 3? This cracked me up. Sean, the best lineup for the New York Knicks last night were the original starters, the non-mid starters +9 via pivotfade.com. I cracked up. I was like, of course he makes the lineup change, and that's when the other lineup winds up being the best. But I do kind of wonder, maybe this is as simple as that, and this might be something to take forward into the next series with Pacers and Thunder, is take whoever it is that's going to come off the bench for the Thunder as like a rebound proposition there in that kind of combo against the Pacers' second lineups. Jill's
I'm
smiling.
laughing because just of the exacta final that we already have in a series that's 2-1, that by Matt's logic should be down 0-3 in this stretch. But also you can maybe even go for it.
I'll say this because Ryan mentions here, to Mr. Moore's point, who are the Pacers who are historically efficient. Are they really going to shoot 40% from the field and 20% from three again? It's a fair point, but here's the thing. And the coaches have talked about this. David Adelman had this quote, and I really liked it. He said, each game in the playoffs is its own thing. And Tibbs kind of echoed that last night, which is you can't worry about winning the series. You just got to win that game. So even though, like, I agree, like, you're probably not going to get that outlier performance. The Knicks did enough to find a way to win when the Pacers had shot 5 of 20 from three and had a really horrible night and played like garbage. Now they got to find a way to play when probably the Pacers play a little bit better. That doesn't mean that they can't. It just means that's the challenge now, is like they went down 20 and won by a little bit when the Pacers played like garbage. Now they got to find a way to play to find a different script here, because if the Knicks get an A+ game, because I don't think you can call that an A+ game, Brunson and Cat were in foul trouble. They had to rely on Landry Shamet. They had to rely on DeLon Wright. They had to get this Cat performance in the fourth quarter. That's not like a peak Knicks game. If they get a peak Knicks game and you get a peak Pacers game, I don't know what that looks like. But I know that if you get a peak Knicks game and you get like a B+ Pacers game, the Knicks will have a chance to win that game. I don't know if they will, but they'll have a chance to win that game. So I think that it's an interesting question. In the market, this is shaping up as Joe's pros before we start getting into bets. Line right now, there's a -2. 71% of the tickets and 77% of the money are on the Pacers. And we're tracking sharp action on Knicks on the pro subscriptions. So that is exactly what this looks like. Same thing with the total. 86% of the tickets, 90% of the money are on the over, which one of our analysts is going to be on. Sharp action on the under. This line has moved down 2.5 points. There's a 220.5 in the market based off of the sharp action on this one. Going to be a little head-to-head in our best bet segment as a little bit of a preview for you.
And by the way, Nick and Jill, how many minutes combined in the second half do you think DeLon Wright and Landry Shamet played? Just off the top of your head.
You're muted, Jill.
Between them. Yeah, you go first.
How many minutes combined in the second half do you think DeLon Wright and Landry Shamet played?
14.
Yeah. They played 9 minutes and 30 seconds combined in the second half. So they were really impactful in that second quarter to funny enough say, to keep it to 13 to go into half. Like, it was getting ready to be 25, 26 going into halftime, right? So that second half, once they kept them in the game, deuce, and then as you mentioned, the best plus-minus number was that original 5. Landry and those guys kept them in, and then the second half, it was still a majority of the starters that got it done. The historical 5 all year for the Knicks that led them to victory.
They were +9 and +10 though. So the 5 minutes that they played were hugely impactful for setting them up an opportunity to close that game. We mentioned off the top of the show that we're coming to you from the Tommy John home studios. That's because when you're comfortable, you can do everything better, and that includes betting. Great games start with great underwear, and Tommy John makes the greatest. Memorial Day, hanging out here on a Monday, good day to hang out in comfortable clothes and not have to worry about going anywhere, hanging out with the kids today. They're off school. I've been hanging out in my Tommy John gear all day long. Their black t-shirt is absolutely terrific. You can also wear like an undershirt with a bunch of different stuff. That's what's great about those. The underwear is obviously, it's phenomenal. I worked out in the underwear yesterday. It was absolutely terrific. It's going to make you feel way better and way more comfortable. Remember, when you're truly comfortable, you do everything better, and that includes betting. If you love the Buckets podcast and you love our crew, you're going to love Tommy John. Get 25% off your first order right now at TommyJohn.com/buckets. That's 25% at TommyJohn.com/buckets. Let's talk about Underdog. Underdog is one of the best places to make picks during playoff basketball, and when they score buckets, you can score cash. Underdog is one of the leading sports apps, and you can play right now in your state. Their app has over 100,000 five-star reviews. They've got millions of players. To play, all you have to do, you just got to download the app and choose whether a player will go higher or lower on one of their stats. That's it, just higher or lower. You can choose from things like points, assists, and so much more. Points, assists, rebounds, steals, three-pointers made, all these type of things, higher or lower. Once your picks feel good, you can play with as little as $1. And if you get everything right, you can win up to 1,000 times your money. We got in the lab, and we've cooked up a dog-em underdog lineup for Knicks Pacers game 4. We're going to take Tyrese Halliburton, 4.5 rebounds higher. He has been dynamite on the glass in this series, surprisingly. He had 4 in game 3, but that was in a little bit of a reduced minute load. I think he'll play a lot more in this game 4 with a chance to go up 3-1. Obi Toppin, 3.5 rebounds higher. Obi is like their best counter to the Mitchell Robinson lineups with his athleticism and ability to get out. You saw what an impact he made in that first half. Toppin, 3.5 rebounds higher. Cat, 11.5 rebounds higher. Just a wagon. Just a wagon. Dude, every night is just grabbing everything off the glass. So we're going to keep it simple with Cat higher on 11.5 rebounds, and Nembhard steals higher 1.5. He only had one. One of them, however, was a deflection that he almost got to, and Hallie managed to grab, and he got credit for the steal. So I like Nembhard to go over 1.5 steals. He averages 1.8 at home in the playoffs. We're going back to that one. Hallie higher, Toppin higher, Cat higher, Nembhard steals higher. You do all those, and you're going to wind up with, in our champions entry, 4 correct, and it's 8.28 times your money. 3 correct, and it's 2.07. Juicy. So that is your underdog dogging him lineup for game 4. Download the Underdog app and sign up with promo code Buckets100 to unlock a special offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit. That's promo code Buckets100. Must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply, void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT-STEP to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Let's do some best bets for game 4 between the Pacers and the Knicks. We'll go around the horn. We'll give out those picks, and then we'll come back and we'll do the cap. Gilles Gallant, what do you like in game 4?
Well, I got a pair of plus money 3-point props. We're going to go with a bounce back spot with Jalen Brunson over 2.5 3-pointers. That's around plus 105. And then on the Pacers side, I'm going to take Andrew Nembhard over 1.5 3-pointers. I got that at plus 155. I'll even explain why you could ladder it up to 5-1 for 3+.
Ooh, I like that. Sean Little, what do you like?
Over 221 in the game, minus 110 in the market. TJ McConnell, under 8.5 points, minus 120. I'm going to go Obi Toppin over 12.5, PRA, minus 115.
All right. I'm going to give you the 220.5 on your best bet here for the over because that's the best number in the market.
Cool.
I am on the Indiana Pacers, minus 2 once again. I'm on the under 221.5. Sean, I'll go head-to-head on that. I'm going to tail Sean on this Toppin prop, and I will almost definitely wind up on Gilles because Gilles, every time he makes these caps, I'm just always like, all right, that's a really good angle. Gilles been absolutely been swaying me. He's been pipering me during these playoffs, and it's worked out very well. All right, let's start with Gilles, and let's do the Jalen Brunson over prop.
Before we start on Brunson, I wanted to ask your opinion or what you might be hearing, or if you're hearing anything about Aaron Nesmith and his injury, because not to say that I'm not going to take this prop if he was to play or if he wasn't to play, but it would definitely impact this prop given that he's been the primary defender on Jalen Brunson a lot of this time. So I just wanted to see if you heard anything about Aaron Nesmith's status coming into game 4.
So he had what was referred to by a reporter as a noticeable limp after the game. And I think he plays. I just think he plays. I think if you play in that second half, it's going to tighten up, right? It's going to swell, but
yeah,
ankle injuries are so different in the regular season versus the playoffs because just nobody really plays through them. It's like, well, let's let them heal. We don't want to cause excess wear and tear on you. They could come back later. You don't want to risk causing another problem. But now it's like, you got to play basketball for 3 more weeks. Like, we just got to play basketball for 3 more weeks. So I think he plays. I think he's probably okay. I think it probably stiffened up, but he'll get treatment today.
Because he did return to the game. I think it's always the next game that you always wonder if it's going to be too tight for him.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's gonna. The only real thing I can think that it would probably impact is probably honestly Brunson. Like, this is actually a good reason to go to tie back into your bet with a Brunson over prop, because if they are worried about it, if he's limited, they will not put him on Brunson as much, which means that's very favorable for Jalen to be able to both get loose for shots and to do what he loves to do, which is to throw
beat
himself
up on them hard. That's what I've noticed is that
to the ground.
Yeah. All right. Well, so here's the deal. So I love for him to go over 2.5 3-pointers at plus 105. And for anybody who's followed me, like, I faded him in game 1 and then I took it again in game 2, the over. So part of the reason here is there's a little bit of zigzag theory, but also bounce back theory with him and also just the odds. I want plus money if I'm going to be taking the over in this. So game 3. Didn't really play a lot. Obviously, he got into foul trouble, 4 fouls in the first half. I'm just doubtful that that's going to happen in back-to-back games. So as a result, I do expect his 3-point attempts to pick up in game 4. But also just as a playoff performer, I think it's really encouraging that this season, we think of all the playoff exploits of Jalen Brunson, but this is his highest 3-point attempts per game in a playoff season in his career, along with his highest 3-point shooting percentage. And the other thing, too, that I like is that in this postseason, he's hit 3 or more 3-pointers in each game after a game where he had a dud, like where he only hit 1. That's 4 games in the playoffs that he's done that. And given the way that he has played in the market and the bounce back, like, I really just thought the odds would be closer to minus 120, especially if Aaron Nesmith potentially is limited and not guarding him as much. So if you're going to give me plus money on the over for this on the guy who's leading the team in 3-point attempts, having a career high in 3-point percentage, why wouldn't I want to take the over at this, especially at plus odds? So at plus odds at plus 105, Jalen Brunson will hit 3 or more 3-pointers in game 4.
Sold. I'm in. You got me. I'm in. I think it's a great cap. The bounce back, I think, opportunity, I think, is really huge here. I think Brunson, you know, this is kind of where I get to with Sean, which is like, look, I think the better approach for them is to get a more egalitarian offense. Like, they need to get everybody involved, man. You need to move the rock. Like, get guys going. You've got weapons. You got Mikal Bridges. You got OG Anunoby. You've got Cat. You've got weapons. And this team's identity over the second half of the season, except for when Brunson was out, what is, hey, let's all watch Jalen dribble for 20 seconds and then he'll do something. And I think that's probably what's going to happen here again. I think Jalen's going to feel pressure to be like, I gotta have I can win us this game.
Well, Cat's not going to score 20 points in the fourth quarter again. Like, he needs to be the one who leads that offense. So I think this is the time where you grab it. And again, it's just more of an odds play and a little bit more of a reactionary mark to what we saw in game 3. Because
again, I mean, getting a plus number at 2.5, I think is crazy, Sean. That to me is a wild overreaction.
Yeah, I mean, if Cat is also dribble driving like he did in the fourth and playing outside and in, it is potential that JB can get more open look. The funny thing about Brunson is everything is so difficult. I think that's why everybody loves it. Everything looks impossible, and it always goes in. It's like, what? It's like, how is this guy doing this, right? So throughout the last 3 games, he's had open looks. He's averaging between that, if you go to that NBA shot dashboard, he's averaging like right around 5 attempts the last 3 games from 3 that are considered open looks from between closest defenders 4 and 6 feet. He's been getting open looks. We know he has the capability to knock it down. And if he's going to get a little more space with Karl-Anthony Towns dribble driving and potentially Mitch Rob not playing as many minutes, it's also touch and go because of the minutes. But like, that's if Brunson is likely to knock down 3+ threes, I really would look at also like a Josh Hart assist. I think that's the guy who's going to get the rock from a ton as well.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see Brunson and how he approaches this game, especially since the extender will not be on the sidelines for this one. So we'll see.
Really a poorly officiated game 3 overall. There was a lot of stuff going on in that.
Yeah, it was not a well officiated game. That's not bad, but the outcome, I just didn't think on either side. Like some of the Brunson fouls I thought were terrible.
Yeah.
Cat, I feel like Cat does a lot of. Here's what drives me crazy is that there's stuff that Cat does that I see elite defenders do, and they don't get called for it because they have a reputation and he has a reputation. And these reputational fouls drive me insane. Like it is crazy to me. And the person, like, yeah. Anyway, let's move on. Sean, talk to me about TJ McConnell. Let's do the under 8.5 points there.
Yeah, let's talk about TJ McConnell. I want to preface this by saying I fucking love this guy.
Oh.
He brings it every single game. He always has. I have a couple really close friends of mine that played with him in that Arizona. He's exactly the type of guy you think he is. Great dude, plays hard, happy to be in the league, shows up. But this shit has to stop, fellas. This offensive efficiency that he's putting up right now in this series it has to slow down. Game 1, 10 points in 14 minutes. Game 2, 10 points, 14 minutes. Game 3, scores 12 points in 15 minutes. There has to be some type of conversation like, hey, off the bench here, and we'll get into this later on in a different cap. It's really difficult to jump into coaches' heads and try to predict what they're going to do. But just from a schematic and approach standpoint, that bench unit really gets going purely on the back of TJ McConnell. That has to be a focus of let's slow this guy down and we'll slow that second unit down. And that's where they differentiate and impact and lean on and apply pressure on teams like other teams can't because they're just so deep. TJ McConnell is the catalyst there. I think the other thing here is that good chance he sees now DeLon Wright chasing him or Deuce or even Landry Shamet. So those are 3 solid defensive guys I trust a lot more than the guys that he's been seeing. And if you go back, go to NBA.com, go look at the buckets. I'm talking about TJ is getting putbacks over Mitch Robinson. He's shooting fallaways. I love his game. I think some regression offensively here has to come on top of the shot making, on top of the attention he will receive. I'm going to go under TJ McConnell, try to buy low on a prop. I think is starting to get a little inflated. Under 8.5 minus 120 in the market. I saw some places even floating 7.5, even though it was juiced to the over. But I think this is a good number and a good spot to fade TJ.
Sean, you said that sorry, but I just wanted to say, Sean, you said that Jalen Brunson, like all of his shots at the rim or even just shots in general, they look hard. Yeah. Like it looks like tough. That was the opposite. TJ McConnell has just getting free run to the rim right now. And he has he's not even a 3-point threat. So that's why I find it hilarious that he's still gotten double-digit points in all 3 playoff games, despite them not really challenging him at the rim. So I think that's something that I'm right there with you. They're going to probably try to lock that up and make sure that he's not getting those easy lanes to the bucket because it's the opposite of Jalen Brunson, where it's so easy for him to get to the rim at this point.
And it's very rare that he goes over that 15-minute mark, right? So get a couple stops and a couple possessions. He's going to be hard-pressed to see 9 points, not shooting any 3 balls. So that's where I'm looking at for TJ.
Other one for me, I think I'm with this consideration is I do wonder if the Pacers put a little bit more push on this game 4. It's tough because you don't want to gas out going back to the Garden, right? You don't want to gas out and lose, and then you've lost 2 in a row, and the Knicks have momentum, and they're going back to the Garden, and you're tired because you threw so much at game 4. On the other hand, it's such a good opportunity to be like, you win this game and the series is done. Like it's done anyway because nobody's ever come back from down 0-2 in the conference finals. But like, this is a really good opportunity. And so I wonder if that means Halliburton plays a few more minutes closer to 40 than 30 in this one. And whether that means that they surround him with wings and forwards, maybe they'll do the double guard, but I do wonder if that could impact a little bit of TJ's opportunity here. Let's talk. I'll just real quick. Pacers, look, I continue to think that this market is wrong. I am not swayed by game 3 at all. It's a very nice win for the Knicks. It's adorable, but I also think that they are still overpriced in the market. The market and the sharps love this Knicks team, and they're not good. and Celtics should feel bad. The Celtics should feel very, very bad about themselves. No, they're good. These both are really good teams. I just think the Pacers are substantially better. So I disagree with the market. And so, like, I'm on Pacers -1.5, -2.5 on the series spread. So I don't necessarily have to bet the spot, but if they're going to give me this 2 and I make this 3.4, I'm still going to be getting back in on the Pacers again here. So I'll bet that. Let's do the total, Sean. So I just continue to kind of think that this series bends a lot more towards defensive performance. That game 1 was really shaped by that first quarter where the Pacers shot the absolute lights out.
Yep.
And I do think that the Knicks are trying to find answers that give them a better chance defensively. You kind of mentioned that, like, they can't defend with Brunson and Cat on the floor. Now, I think they'll go back to that a lot here because I don't trust Tibbs to make adjustments ever. So I don't necessarily think they're going to get away from it. But I do think that the Pacers defense can probably execute a little bit better on things like, if we kind of look at the box score, getting 9 points out of Miles McBride with him drawing free throws. They got a really favorable whistle, and the game still went under by a wide margin. Now, I think a good question here is just like, look, the Knicks allowed 100 points to this Pacers team. Probably not going to happen. The Pacers allowed 106 to this Knicks team. Probably not going to happen. But we get a pretty big margin between that and the total. I still like this as an under. So why do you want the over here?
Yeah, I think overall the game flow looks a lot more like it did in the first half, with the Knicks playing better offensively than they did in the first half in game 3. Now, if we go back to game 1, closes 221.5, goes way over because Aaron Curry Nesmith gets it to OT, right? Then game 2, complete overreaction to game 1. Prior to Nesmith metamorphosing into Klay Thompson, game flow was under. We talked about it on buckets. I gave out under 227. It closed 224.5, depending on where you're looking at it, and it goes under. Then game 3, the entire first half is the type of game the Pacers want to play and the type of game the Pacers are going to play when Brunson and those guys are getting a majority of the minutes. You flip in DeLon Wright and Landry Shamet for a handful, and even in the second quarter, it slows up a little bit. But the Pacers were off and running, and I believe that's how it's going to look a majority of the time in this series, accompanied by the New York Knicks playing a lot better offense. We talked about it prior. The second half offense from the Pacers was horrendous. They scored 42 points, and that was partly because Knicks are flying around defensively. Shamet taking the charge, I think, was big. DeLon Wright, of course. And then there was just a lot more minutes for defensive-centric guys with Jalen Brunson being on the bench. He only played 13 minutes in the second half. I think the regular – and then on top of that, to go back to what you said about the starting 5 still being really impactful, Josh Hart in the second half, I believe, was a plus 21. So Josh is going to go back to getting his minutes. I think we get a lot more minutes with the regular 5, and it's just a more offensive-centric game. I think right around that 221 is the tipping point here on the total. Anything over, like the 227 was absurd, and that's why we talked about it in game 2. That was a complete overreaction to the game 1 number. We got under there. I think this is more natural offensive series, as we saw in the beginning of game 1 at the Garden. The Knicks will fall into that, okay, you guys want to play O, we'll play O with you. That may not be the best strategy, but I think that's just naturally where this matchup goes, and I think 221 is a bit short.
Okay. Let's go back to Jill. And Jill, talk to me about Andrew Nembhard over 1.5 threes.
Sure. So game 1, I was on the over 1.5. I did ladder it. So we did hit it in game 1, albeit we needed overtime to get there. And then it hit in game 2. So I'm going back to it here. Andrew Nembhard over 1.5 3-pointers. And here's why, just like a number. So right now it's around plus 150. Again, a little bit of an overreaction of what we saw in game 3, because both game 1 and game 2 hit his first 3-pointer out of the gate. finishes with 2 in each of those games. Then, of course, just over the playoffs, he's just been a little bit more of a boon of offense for this Pacers team because he's hit this in 8 of 13 playoff games, 2 of 3 games in the series. And I find the Knicks really are focused on trying to shut down like the secondary scoring, like Aaron Nesmith, making sure he doesn't go off again, or even Pascal Siakam, who had 39 points in game 2, back down to 17 there in game 3. Again, I also think Aaron Nesmith is going to see less minutes, which again, I think we're going to see more playing time for Andrew Nembhard, who already is playing close to 35 to 38 minutes a game. The other thing that I like too about Nembhard is when he gets it going, we've seen him have some pretty big games from 3-point. He has 5 games this playoffs with 3 or more 3-pointers. So I'm going to ladder this as well because it's around 5-1 for 3 3-pointers. So if we're seeing a game script to what Sean is thinking, where they're going to go offense versus offense and maybe just leave the defense at home, Nembhard, I think, is going to be one of those beneficiaries as a result. So I think this is a perfect opportunity to ladder, especially at those plus odds. But if you just feel more comfortable just taking the regular line of over 1.5 3-pointers, I'm seeing plus 150 out there. Very good odds for that prop.
Smart stuff. I started off really low on Nembhard in this series offensively, and he's had some rough games in general. But when I went back and watched the film, I liked a lot of the opportunities he's kind of gotten, and I think he'll be a little bit more confident in game 2. Or game 4. I think this is a very good buyback spot. Sean, let's wrap it up with give me your thoughts on Obi Toppin over 12.5 PRA.
Yeah, Obi Toppin over 12.5 PRA, minus 115 in the market. As I mentioned with Tibbs, and it's tough, but you just got to go with how you think things should improve and levers that guys can pull. And I think getting Obi Toppin more minutes is something that Carlisle can pull. He played 20 minutes in game 1, went over this number, had 10 boards, 8 points. I think he plays closer to that 20-minute mark in this game 4. For a team that's full of big dudes, no one rebounds, but Obi Toppin will rebound. He will get acclimated. He will crash the boards, especially the offensive boards. Now, in my opinion, I'm not a massive fan of these Tony Bradley minutes. I really don't think they're as impactful as I don't know why he's getting so many minutes. How about that? I'll just plainly say he's getting a few too many minutes. And I think if there's one guy that could trade and lose some minutes, it would be Tony Bradley in favor of Obi Toppin. I like that spot. Obi can score. Obi can clean the glass. Obi can run the floor. And if I think the game flow is that offense first, I think he sees closer to 20 minutes than the 14 he played in game 3. It feels pretty short for a guy that consistently can get to double digits in points alone. I wouldn't be shocked if it was like a double type spot game if he gets the minutes from Obi Toppin.
They won't give us a prop on him. What I will say, Carlisle definitely under adjusted to the lineup rotation because you just wanted to see how it looked. And look, they went up 20 and it was working. And then the Knicks got together and made that push. And then second half, they really got it together and the Pacers couldn't hit anything. I am kind of curious if he goes back to Thomas Bryant because Tony Bradley makes a lot more sense if you're facing Mitchell Robinson in the bench minutes, and Thomas Bryant makes a lot more sense if you're facing small ball rotations with that second unit. And he's just trying to steal minutes for Turner. That's all he's trying to do. And they were killing Bryant, so they went to Tony Bradley. I think they probably go back to Thomas Bryant a little bit more in game 4. If the prop pops up for him, I might look for that. Am I crazy on that, Jill?
I mean, somewhat. Not like a lot crazy, but I would definitely be there's something about the minutes when it's just so erratic when those two are on the when either I don't feel good either way. I think that's what's very difficult is like I see obviously I think if I had to choose either of them, it would probably be an under because they would get exposed more than likely the opening couple of minutes they're on the floor and then Carlisle has to make a move. So that would probably be the two. But again, I don't want to talk you out of props. I don't like talking people out of them. I just don't feel great about.
Let's clarify our relationship right now. You should absolutely talk me out of props. I have a well-established history of being terrible at them. So you should absolutely talk me out of props, Joe Gallant. So I thank you for your service. All right. Let's
really quick, Matt.
Yeah.
In that first half, team high. If you're a big plus minus guy, Obi Toppin's plus 19 in the first half for the Pacers, and he's even 0 in the second half. But that's by far the best number across the board for the Pacers. It's just been a really positive thing when he's on the floor, and Carlisle trusted him down the stretch in that comeback in game 1. I just think he gets more minutes here in game 4, and 12.5 on a PRA for a guy that'll play a lot of minutes and runs the floor is a little too low.
Especially with the PRA too. Like a lot of the time, if you want to take an over on a PRA, you have to almost feel a little confident that he could pass that just on points alone. And Toppin, I think, is one of those few guys, especially in this game script.
Good stuff. All right, let's wrap it up. Let's do a parlay before we get out of here. In the market, this is what we've come up with, and I think this is a great one. Tyrese Halliburton under 20.5 points. There's a minus 115 on it. Gilles, you got me back in on this. He hit 20 last game. What do you think on going back to Hallie under 20.5?
Well, I think the 20.5 is the key number here, because I'm seeing some 19.5s right now out there. So again, just shop around, make sure you get that 20.5. But the big thing about Halliburton is just if his 3-point shot isn't hitting, it's really tough for him to get to those 20 points. And those attempts just are dropping as the games go on. So I think if you are going to take that, you would probably want to be looking at like a 3+ 3-pointers or something like that if you were looking at the over on the 20.5. But I just think that Knicks defense has kind of figured it out a little bit where they're going to be able to limit him on that. So I think he's not going to get the points. He's going to try to be more of a distributor like he has been. And so under 20.5, I feel pretty comfortable with that.
We're going to add Jalen Brunson, 3+ 3s from Gilles' excellent cap from earlier. And then we're going to take the money line on your New York Knicks, Sean Little. We'll go ahead and take I wanted to throw in a side on this one. This is the script. This is the Knicks find a way again to get this to 2-2. No one wins at home. We go back to the Garden, 2-2. Knicks money line. You believe they can get it done?
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's why you see the number is so short. I think they absolutely could get it done. And I just don't. It's really interesting because this is a personal decision, I think, for a lot of fans and analysts and writers watching, that where the pressure lies coming into this game 4. The Pacers like, fuck, we can't drop 2 in a row at home. Just like we just went to the Garden and picked off 2. Now we're going to give away 2 and then go back to the Garden, like you mentioned, Matt. Or are the Knicks like, we must win this game to try to get back to the Garden? It's a really tough mindset. That's why these 7-game series are always so special, because man, you could go from game 2 to game 5, and it's damn near a different series. So pick what side you're on. But I feel like the Knicks gave themselves life because I think partly it's like, I don't want to say even if they lose this game, we're going to get back to the Garden, but they bought themselves another game at home.
Yes.
They were looking dead down the barrel of, we're never going to see Madison Square Garden again. We're in big trouble. They at least bought themselves another game in their building, and I think that's huge for them.
Yeah, I think it is. I genuinely think it is. Look, this is going to be the wildest comeback season. The Knicks have 3 20+ comebacks in these playoffs. That's the most of any team since at least 2003, if not longer. That's only as far back as I can check on it. It's absolutely ridiculous. 56% of the tickets are on Pacers money line. 66% of the money on the Knicks. Pros versus Joes.
Last point here to go back to the Obi Toppin chat we were talking about. I pulled the on-off for the playoffs. In 79 minutes, Halliburton, Toppin, Turner offensive rating is a 131.1. I mean, wow. Toppin on the floor. Yeah, he's been good for them offensively. So
that's going to do it for Buckets. Thanks for joining us. My thanks to GDog5000 as well as Sean Little for joining me here on Buckets this afternoon. We have moved the afternoon pregame show from 5:30 Eastern to 6:30 Eastern. We want to get inside the window of both the coaches' talks for injury updates as well as just people are looking for bets a little bit closer to the game. So we're moving that to 6:30 Eastern. You can check us out here on youtube.com/the Action Network. If you're listening on the podcast, please consider giving us a 5-star review. My thanks to David Payne. Hope he's enjoying his Memorial Day, even though he's working. Thanks to, if you're stateside, thanks to all the service members. Appreciate you. Thanks for your service. Hope you guys have a great holiday. If you're listening to this on Monday, if it's a Tuesday, enjoy the start of your work week. We'll be back with more buckets, live shows, pre and post game. Till next time, let's get buckets. Go Pacers!